Hi guys, welcome back to the Drive Life channel, and today's video, it's a bit of a rant video talking about a design flaw on these P3 Volvos, or the later ones, and of course talking about the twin turbo later gen, the 205 horsepower D5s onwards, where they have located the thermostat on this car. So I noticed that my SAT should be getting slightly better fuel economy than it is. Volvo reckon it should be getting 55 on the motorway. I don't know if those of you who saw my recent fuel economy video, I say recent, it was probably 6 months ago. We only averaged 46 mpg, which is about 10%, or sorry, 20% lower than what it should be. Ever since I've had the car, I've noticed that when I run data logging on it, through the OBD port and record the data, the car doesn't ever actually get up to operating temperature, what I would deem operating temperature of around between 80 and 90 degrees. The smart car does, the Jeep does, and the Sprinter van does, but this one doesn't. Does all the same driving, all the same roads, in fact it does more driving, but of course we don't have a temperature gauge on this car at all, which is something car manufacturers started doing with modern diesels. So here we don't have any way of telling what the temperature of the engine is. Now obviously you know that it's not going to be full, or it's going to be cold when you first start it, but it would be nice to know when the car is up to temperature. This is obviously important because of DPF cycles, etc. Although touch wood, I've been okay with those. But my theory is that the thermostat is stuck open. So I went to Keith Price Volvo, who I use all the time for parts. They're probably one of the best Volvo dealers in the UK. So check them out if you're in the market for new or used Volvos. They're the ones that sort me out with all the lovely new cars to review. And they gave me a really good price on having it changed. It's something that I thought I could do, but having a bit of research done on it, it's a bit of a nightmare job, and I'm going to show you why that is. So for those of you who don't know, the thermostat will open to allow the coolant to circle round into the radiator. By default they're shut, and when it gets up to temperature it'll automatically open like a valve and allow the coolant to circulate through the radiator, thus keeping the engine nice and cool. Now when it stays open, what happens is that coolant is constantly moving around the engine into the radiator, cooling down, moving around, which means actually the car will struggle to get temperature in it, or retain temperature, because all the temperature from the heating, from all the heat from the engine is then being sucked straight out and cooled in the radiator. So on cold days especially, my car really does struggle to get anywhere near temperature. I think the highest I've had is 82 degrees. Normally it sits around 70 degrees, which is a good 10 degrees lower than its optimum. And this has an impact on fuel economy. When the engine's not up to temperature, it's not running as efficiently as it can be. The diesel isn't burnt as efficiently as it can be, and that's why I'm getting lower fuel economy than, or less fuel economy than I would like. So it's a bit annoying, but the issue is that Volvo have actually placed thermostat in the back of this engine near the manifold. So what that means is it's inaccessible unless you can climb up underneath the car and up the back, and also it's a really funky design. Well, there's not really much I can really show you. It's down the back here, and the part itself is over £130 from Volvo, and that's with reasonable discount. They said it would take 3 hours labour. I think the total quote was over £300. Painful stuff. It's actually the most, apart from the rear shock absorbers, the most expensive bill or quote for work I've had. So at the moment I haven't had it done. I just can't justify spending 400 quid on something that really isn't affecting the overall running of the car. The car is still running okay, and I'm getting good reasonable fuel economy. What I'm finding though is that we're not having any issues with the DPF system. Now that was a concern of mine. I thought if the engine's not getting up to temperature, then the DPF wouldn't regen and that would now become a fault. But what I've read online is that they're separate. So exhaust temperature and engine temperature, although they are linked, so the car will know that it's the engine's warm enough to be run a DPF cycle, and essentially what it does is it injects more fuel in and makes the car burn a lot more fuel to really increase the exhaust temperature. And what that does is then burn off all the soot that the filter has captured. That's why sometimes you might smell your car running really rich. You can smell sort of really fumey diesel fumes, and that's why it's probably doing a DPF cycle. And that's also why the oil level goes up if you don't let that happen, because that excess fuel goes into the oil and dilutes the oil. So I thought that would be an issue, but I think from what I've read that Volvo have actually got quite a wide window for engine temperature. It can do it from anywhere between sort of 65 degrees to nearly 100 degrees, so there's quite a bit of variation, which has allowed the DPF to work as normal. I know that for a fact because the other day it was definitely doing a DPF cycle. I let it finish and it's absolutely no problem at all. Ran diagnostics on the car. This car has a sensor that tells you how much soot is in the filter, and it was all sort of clean. So yeah, the fact is that thermostats on most cars cost about £25 to replace. You can do it yourself. All you have to do is unclip a whole coolant hose, replace a part, put it back in, top the coolant up, and you're good to go. This car, it's a much more involved process, which is really frustrating, but it's going to be something I'm going to have to do at some point. You'll notice here as well we've got a bit of crud coming from the I think it is the throttle body or the EGR system there, so we'll keep that and get that looked at as well while we look at it. I think what I probably need to do is give it all a good clean out, because what happens is I've got a bit of a build up here of the same stuff. So I think what's happening now is it's building up and coming around and spewing out down here. So yeah, just wanted to sort of warn you guys or explain the annoying thing about thermostat. I just thought, like every other car, that it would be a 5-10 minute job to replace, but it's somewhere down in the back of the engine here, underneath the turbos. It's an absolute nightmare. Thanks Volvo for doing that, because it just makes it a bit more miserable to try and sort out. But yeah, overall the S80 is running really well. You'll see here that all the injectors, these are original injectors. I'm not going to curse myself, but they've been okay. We haven't got any issues so far, which is nice. You might be able to hear a helicopter in the background. We're actually parked less than a mile away from the SAS camp at Hereford, so that's why you can hear that. But yeah, overall the car is doing really well, especially now we've fixed the ABS sensor. That problem's all but gone away. It's been really nice just to be able to drive the car as it was intended, not to have any limp modes or faults come up. We're still getting a slight binding noise on the front left wheel here, and I tried to take that off and have a look at it at work, but it's corroded on. Didn't have enough time to really deal with that as an issue, so we'll sort that out. I've now got a couple of weeks off because I'm changing jobs, so it's be a good time to get everything sorted on this car ready, because I'm going to rely on it to do big miles every week, which would be nice. So yeah, just a word of warning for you guys. It's not really something, unless you're quite an adept mechanic, that you really want to be considering doing. It might be something to save up for, put a few £100 away when you can, and get it done. But yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and we'll see you next video. Cheers.